Please help me to reach 7,000 subscribers. Maya Hale stood at the kitchen counter of her beautiful home in Westport, Connecticut, staring at the sunlight bouncing off spotless marble countertops. To anyone looking in from the outside, she had the perfect life, the kind of life people posted on Pinterest boards and dreamed about. A handsome husband, a successful real estate career, a stunning coastal house with ocean view windows, and a wine fridge she barely used. She had everything, except the one thing she thought she already had, a real marriage. Evan Osmond, the man she had promised forever with, walked past her with a rushed kiss on the cheek, phone already in hand. He wasn't rude. He wasn't unkind. But he was distant, distracted, attached more to the glowing screen in his palm than the woman who shared his bed. The morning sun streamed in through floor-to-ceiling windows, but somehow the house felt cold. Maya smiled anyway, like she always did. She made his coffee the same way every morning. 2 sugars, splash of cream, a habit formed from love and routine. But today, he didn't even take a sip before the phone buzzed again. His eyes flicked down, and the instant softening of his expression told Maya that message wasn't work. She had seen that look before. The kind you give someone who makes your heart lean forward. Someone who makes you feel alive. Someone that used to be her. Client issue, he muttered, already half out the door. But his tone didn't match a man dealing with contracts and meetings. It sounded more like a man who couldn't wait to get somewhere else. Maya tried not to overthink it. She grabbed her planner, slid into her blazer, and left for the small architectural firm where she worked. Even at the office, the thought lingered. She gave her team instructions for the day, material samples, client revisions, and the new hotel project in Fairfield. She pushed through like everything was normal. But every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped, praying it was Evan sending something sweet, something reassuring, something that felt like him again. It never was. Lunch came and went. Her coworkers chatted about weekend plans and vacations while Maya quietly swiped her screen, seeing a delivered under her message but no reply. 10 hours together last night. One home, one bed, yet she felt miles away from him. That night, when she walked through the front door, Evan wasn't home. A cold déjà vu washed through her. She stopped counting how many times he'd missed dinner. But she still set the table for 2. She still reheated his plate later. She still fell asleep waiting for the click of the door opening. And when she finally heard it after midnight, she pretended not to wake up. Evan slipped into bed quietly, turning away, like sharing a mattress was just another task checked off his day. She waited for him to reach for her. He didn't. She closed her eyes and told herself she was imagining it. That emotional distance was just stress, just work, just life being complicated. But deep down, in that quiet pocket between exhaustion and heartbreak, she knew this wasn't the same love she married into. The next morning didn't feel any different. His phone buzzed again during breakfast, and he flipped it face down, as if that made things more respectful. It didn't. It only made the secret louder. Maya swallowed the pressure sitting in her chest and kept smiling like nothing was wrong. Later that afternoon, she walked into the kitchen and spotted something lying half-hidden under mail and keys. A small gift bag with silver tissue paper sticking out the top. A jewelry box, with someone else's name on the card. Olivia Price, her best friend, her maid of honor, the woman she trusted with things she never told anyone else. Maya blinked slowly, pulse pounding in her ears. She didn't open it. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply placed it back where she found it and stepped away. Because if she opened it, if she looked too closely, the truth might become real. And she wasn't ready for reality. Not yet. That evening, Olivia showed up for girls' night, laughing brightly and hugging Maya like nothing in the world was wrong. Maya hugged back, trying to ignore the smell of betrayal that seemed to cling to the room like cologne. Olivia looked beautiful, glowing, confident. The kind of confident that didn't belong to a woman who should be wishing for her best friend's happiness. Evan came home mid-visit, and Maya watched as his eyes met Olivia's just half a second too long. A second only a wife would see. That was when Maya realized she wasn't crazy. She wasn't insecure. Something was happening. Later that night, while Olivia was in the bathroom, Maya stood beside Evan in the kitchen. She looked him straight in the eyes and asked, softly, "Are you happy with me?" Evan swallowed, surprised by the question. Instead of reassurance, he gave a business-style answer. Measured, logical, emotionless. Things are just stressful right now. I'm dealing with a lot. We'll talk about it soon, okay? Soon. The word she had heard too many times. Soon meant never. When Maya lay down that night, she stared at the ceiling and thought about the vows they exchanged in a sunlit church 3 years ago. Promises of forever. No secrets. You first. Always. Reality had become everything opposite. She shared a house, a bed, a name, but not a marriage. Not a partner. Not the love she thought she had. To everyone in Westport. They were the picture-perfect couple. Good jobs, stunning home, charity galas, hand-holding photos, Christmas cards with matching sweaters. But no one ever saw the silence behind the walls. No one saw the distance growing like cracks in foundation marble. Maya was still in love. Evan was already gone. Her heart just hadn't been told yet. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Olivia Price had always been the kind of best friend people trusted instantly. Tall, charming, warm smile. The life of the party type who could walk into a room and make everyone feel seen. She and Maya had grown up together, shared dorm rooms in college, survived first heartbreaks side by side, and promised at 21 that nothing and no one would ever come between them. They used to drink wine on Maya's apartment floor and laugh about the weddings they'd one day plan. Back then, the promise felt unbreakable, but life didn't break promises dramatically. It chipped at them slowly. It started with harmless favors. Olivia offering to pick Maya up from work, helping her decorate her first house, giving Evan advice about business contacts. Then business advice became joint strategy sessions. Joint sessions became late-night work calls. Eventually, those calls turned into private dinners Maya didn't hear about until after the check was already paid. First, Maya didn't read too deeply into it. She trusted them both. She had every reason to. Olivia had been there long before Evan ever came into the picture. And Evan was her husband, her person, her forever. If they were building a stronger work network, she was proud. If they were brainstorming a new project over dinner, she assumed it was for the good of their futures. But shadows grow quietly in well-lit rooms. One Friday evening, Maya walked into Evan's office to drop off a file he'd forgotten. She stopped when she heard laughter. The unguarded, playful kind that usually lived between two people who shared something the rest of the world didn't. She knocked softly. The laughter stopped abruptly. When she pushed the door open, Olivia was sitting on Evan's desk, leaning in a little too close, their expressions shifting into that guilty too fast neutrality couples where when someone walks in before they're ready. "Did we forget something?" Maya asked, trying to keep her smile steady. "No." Olivia jumped off the desk, smoothing her skirt in one quick motion. "Just finishing up some marketing plans." Evan nodded and thanked Maya for the file. She stayed only a moment before leaving, but even with the door shut, she could feel the shift. Something was happening. Not loud, not obvious, but real. The next week, Maya invited Olivia to brunch, just the two of them, like old times. Olivia agreed instantly, but when the day came, she canceled at the last minute with a text. "Last-minute business lunch with Evan. Rain check?" Maya stared at the message for a long time. She typed "sure" and went alone. She picked at her avocado toast while families laughed around her. A couple toasted to an anniversary. A little girl ate whipped cream straight from the spoon. All of it should have been warm and comforting, but instead it felt like the world was moving while she was stuck watching her life get rearranged without her consent. When Olivia showed up later that evening with a bottle of wine and a big smile, Maya forced herself to pretend nothing hurt. Olivia talked for 15 minutes straight about business synergy, investor reactions, and partnership numbers. Words Maya didn't remember her being excited about before she began spending time with Evan. Maya nodded, trying to stay present, but what she really wanted was a sign, even a small one, that she wasn't being slowly replaced. Over the next few months, Olivia's role in Maya's life shifted so quietly it was easy to miss unless you were the woman losing space. Girls' nights became girls' nights with Evan. Texts from Olivia were now sprinkled with things like, "You should remind Evan about tomorrow's pitch," or "I think Evan has a better solution for that. Ask him." Or worse, "I actually already discussed that with Evan. He'll fill you in." Every line felt like stepping back from her own marriage. Meanwhile, Olivia was blossoming. New clothes, new opportunities, new confidence. She glowed with the kind of joy that didn't belong to a woman simply succeeding at work. Maya noticed details she wished she could unsee. Olivia looking at Evan a breath too long. Evan adjusting his tie when she entered the room. The natural fluency of two people who communicated in shorthand unseen by the third person who was supposed to matter. One night, Maya found a framed photo tucked behind Olivia's purse at the foot of their couch. A picture of Olivia and Evan at some business event, standing too close, smiling the way new couples do before the world discovers them. Maya stared at it, her heart pounding in her ears. She asked Olivia about it casually later, and Olivia laughed it off. "Oh my God, we were posing for the company page. I didn't like the lighting. I forgot it was in my bag." Maya nodded slowly, but her trust felt like it had been dipped in ice water. Small humiliations began stacking. Olivia accidentally calling Evan's office line instead of Maya's during emergencies. Olivia picking Maya up late because she had been finishing a conversation with Evan. Olivia knowing Evan's schedule better than Maya did. One afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. Maya arrived early to meet Olivia, only to see Olivia already there at a corner table with Evan, leaning in close and speaking softly. Maya stood outside the window and watched them for a few seconds before going in. The moment they saw her, their posture changed like a curtain dropping. Maya sat with them. They made small talk. They acted casual, but she wasn't blind. There was a communication between them now that didn't include her. It wasn't physical. It was worse. It was emotional. Emotional cheating, the kind where hearts exchange secrets loud enough for the room to hear. Later that night, at a rooftop fundraiser overlooking the city lights, Maya watched a group of business associates congratulate Evan and Olivia on their amazing partnership. One older investor even said it aloud. "You two make a great team. Power duo." Maya laughed politely, but she felt the words like a glass splinter being pushed deeper under the skin. When the speeches ended, people mingled with champagne. Maya stood alone near the railing, watching city lights blur beneath the cold breeze. Evan and Olivia stood across the room, discussing something animatedly, bodies slightly tilted toward each other in reflexive comfort. Maya tried to count how many times she saw them smile that way at her lately. She came up empty. Someone approached her, a junior partner from Evan's firm, and whispered with a sympathetic tilt of his head, "Long night, huh? Must be strange watching those two climb the ladder together." Maya forced a smile. "It's just business." But the man's expression said he didn't believe her. She wondered if everyone knew except her. The next morning, Maya woke early and found Olivia already at the kitchen table, hair in a soft bun, wearing one of Evan's firm jackets. Eating breakfast like it was her house. Maya stood there for a long moment, waiting for some explanation. Instead, Olivia smiled like nothing was wrong and said, "I let myself in. Evan and I had a strategy meeting before work. You're welcome to join next time." Next time, Maya didn't answer. She sat down, picked up her coffee, and listened as Olivia talked, and Evan looked at her in ways that married men shouldn't look at anyone but their wives. In that moment, Maya felt something inside her quietly step aside, like she was being written out of her own marriage one scene at a time. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the truth finally stepped out of the shadows. Maya came home early from a project presentation in Hartford, hoping, maybe foolishly, that Evan might also be home for once. They hadn't had a real dinner together in weeks, and she was tired of eating alone in a house made for two. She pushed open the door and felt the stillness settle around her like dust. She dropped her keys on the entry table and noticed a stack of mail tossed carelessly beside them. Bills, catalogs, a real estate newsletter, and one envelope from a private women's health clinic in Stamford. At first, she assumed it was a generic mailer and was about to throw it away when she saw the name printed clearly on the corner. Olivia Price. Her hand froze. Maya wasn't someone who snooped. She had never gone through Evan's phone, never read private messages, never hunted for trouble. But this envelope wasn't hidden. It was sitting in her house, in her mailbox, in her life. Her heart was already racing before she tore the corner open. Inside was a printed invoice. Prenatal care. Second trimester blood work. Estimated due dates circled in ink. Pregnant. Her vision blurred. She sank onto the arm of the couch and gripped the paper until it wrinkled. There were millions of explanations in the world, none of them innocent. There was only one truth, and it hit so hard it stole the sound from the room. Olivia was pregnant. But Maya didn't need a test to know it wasn't a stranger's child that a sound escaped her, half breath, half disbelief. The kind of hollow noise heartbreak makes before tears can catch up. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Evan, he entered the living room, scrolling through his phone like always, talking softly under his breath before pausing mid-step. His eyes lifted. Maya sat there holding the invoice like evidence in an unsolved murder for a long second. Neither spoke. Then Maya's voice came out low and calm. The kind of calm that happens right before the world splits. How long have you known? Evan's face lost its color. He opened his mouth, but no sound came. Instead of denial, instead of confusion, she saw the truth land in his posture, shoulders collapsing, breath shaking, eyes closing as the lie he'd been living finally ran out of ground to stand on. Maya swallowed. Is it yours? Evan looked at her, and that was the answer. Silence spoke louder than confession. Her heart didn't break in one loud shatter. It cracked like porcelain, small fractures racing across the surface until there was no smooth place left. Just then, footsteps came from outside. The front door opened. Olivia walked in. She wasn't glowing or glamorous today. No tailored blazer, no confident posture. She looked tired, nervous, and when she saw Maya standing with the letter in her hand, Olivia's face drained like someone watching her world collapse in slow motion. Maya? Olivia whispered. You're pregnant. Maya finished for her. Olivia nodded, eyes wet. And it's his, Maya said again. This time without question. Nobody spoke. The clock in the hallway ticked 10 long seconds, each one sounding like a hammer to the chest. Evan finally stepped forward, stumbling over his words. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Maya let out a soft, broken laugh. No? How was it supposed to happen exactly? I find out later? At the baby shower? Evan looked like he wanted to reach for her, but she stepped back. Olivia's hand went protectively to her stomach, and the sight of it made bile rise in Maya's throat. She walked past them both and headed upstairs. She didn't scream or curse. She didn't throw anything. She didn't tell them they destroyed her life. They already knew I in the bedroom. She opened the jewelry box on her dresser and stared at her wedding ring, the one Evan had slid onto her finger in a church filled with flowers and hope. She remembered his vow. I choose you. Today and every day, he just hadn't kept choosing her. With steady fingers, she removed the ring and closed it into her palm. Tears finally came, hot, heavy, unstoppable. But she wiped them away before they reached her jaw. Maya wasn't leaving because she was weak. She was leaving because she finally remembered. She deserved to be someone's first choice. Evan called her name from downstairs, voice cracking. She didn't answer. She packed one suitcase. Not everything, just enough to leave with dignity. Jeans, sweaters, laptop, the framed picture of her parents. Nothing that belonged to the life she shared with him. When she came downstairs, Evan reached out, desperate. Maya, please. Don't do this. We can fix it. We can talk. She held up her hand, and he froze. You already had all the conversations that mattered, she said quietly. Just not with me. Olivia stood behind him crying, whispering apologies Maya didn't want to hear. Not now. Maybe not ever. Maya placed her wedding ring on the kitchen countertop, the same countertop where she once imagined packing school lunches and planning family vacations. It sat there like an ending carved in gold. She picked up her suitcase and walked to the door before she left. She turned once more and spoke, not in anger, but with a calm that came from having nothing left to lose. I hope one day you both understand what you destroyed. She stepped outside into the crisp air, pulled the door closed behind her, and walked down the stone path toward her car. Each step felt heavy, but also something else, lighter, freer, like she was slowly stepping back into herself. Evan followed her outside, voice breaking. Maya, where are you going? She didn't turn around. Away from here, she said. Away from you. The car door shut. She drove off as Evan stood in the driveway helpless, watching the woman he never thought would leave finally choose herself. Her phone was the first thing she turned off. Her silence was the first punishment, but the real punishment was coming when Evan realized losing her wouldn't just break his marriage, it would break his world. Evan stood in the middle of the master bedroom, staring at the empty jewelry dish on the dresser. Maya's wedding ring, the one she never once took off in 6 years of marriage, was gone. For a moment, his brain simply refused to register what that meant. His heart hammered in his chest as he looked around the room. Her suitcase was missing, her favorite coat wasn't hanging by the door, and the charger she always kept by the nightstand was gone too. She had left. She had walked out without a note, without a word, without even giving him a chance to explain. His throat tightened as he reached up and rubbed the back of his neck, panic flooding in fast. He called her phone once, straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same thing. His hands shook as he dialed the third time, speaking into the silence as if she could hear him anyway, begging her to pick up. No answer. Somewhere inside him, the denial he'd been clinging to started to crumble. This was really happening. Maya wasn't just angry. She wasn't just taking time alone. She was gone. Evan ran downstairs and checked the door camera footage on his phone. The screen loaded, and there she was, Maya quietly walking out at 3:12 a.m. with a small suitcase. Shoulders tense, face expressionless, like someone whose heart had been ripped out and she was holding herself together by force alone. She didn't even look back at the house. Watching it hit him like a punch to the ribs. She had been suffering, and he hadn't seen it. Or worse, he'd refused to see it. He grabbed his keys and rushed out the door. The cold night air stung his face as he got into the car and started driving. He didn't even know where he was going. He just couldn't sit still. He went to her favorite late-night cafe first, the little place they used to go in their early dating days, tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner. His eyes scanned every table. She wasn't there. He stood outside on the sidewalk, feeling the world tilt and darken around him. Next, he drove to her sister's apartment across town. He rang the bell over and over, enough that a neighbor cracked their door open to glare at him. No one answered. He called her sister, no pickup. His mind was racing with worst-case scenarios, his muscles tense, adrenaline spiking. He had messed up, but he never imagined she would disappear like this. He never imagined he could hurt her deeply enough that her only instinct was escape. He got back in the car and slammed the door, gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles burned white. The streets were empty, the streetlights blurry through the film of tears in his eyes. He wiped them away with the sleeve of his jacket, almost angry at himself. This wasn't him. He was strong, composed, in control. Except none of that mattered now. Not when the woman he loved couldn't stand to stay in the same home as him anymore. His phone buzzed suddenly. For a split second, hope surged. Maybe Maya finally replied. But when he looked, his jaw tightened. It was Olivia. He stared at the name glowing on the screen and felt a sharp twist in his chest. He should have blocked her already. He should never have let things get this far. He rejected the call instantly. It rang again, then again. Finally, he shut the phone off entirely. The last person he wanted to hear from was the one who started this spiral. He took a shaky breath, then drove to the small coastal overlook where he and Maya once watched the 4th of July fireworks. Years ago, back when things were good, before distraction and mistakes poisoned everything. He parked and sat there in the dark, the sound of waves breaking against the rocks below, headlights off, world silent except for the wind. He leaned back in the seat and stared at the ceiling, guilt pressing down on him like weight. He thought about the way Maya used to laugh. Loud, real, uncontrolled. The way she would put a hand on his face when he was stressed, grounding him instantly without a word. How she always packed his lunch on days when he had early meetings. How she trusted him so blindly that she never once doubted he would choose her, always. And he had fallen short. Not just in a single moment, but slowly, carelessly, over time that he remembered the night Olivia first confided in him about her breakup. He should have kept boundaries. He should have walked away. Instead, he became someone Maya could no longer recognize. And now, he couldn't recognize himself either. His chest tightened until it hurt. He wanted to scream. He wanted to punch something. He wanted to turn back time and undo everything. Instead, he dialed Maya's number one more time, whispering into the voicemail when it sent him there again. His voice cracked. Please, just tell me you're safe. I deserve every ounce of anger, I know, but I need to hear your voice. He dropped the phone into the passenger seat and leaned forward, head in his hands, breathing hard. The guilt was a living thing inside him now, a suffocating one that he didn't go home. He didn't sleep. He spent the entire night driving through every place she could possibly be. A motel near her office. A park she used to go to when she needed thinking space. The familiar corner where she waited for the bus as a high schooler. He was dragging himself across the city, chasing a memory. Chasing a woman who had been chasing his attention for months and finally gave up that BY morning. He pulled over in a grocery store parking lot, eyes red, throat raw, body exhausted. He dialed her mother's number this time. No news. She hadn't contacted her either. He apologized, voice barely above a whisper, more ashamed than he had ever been in his life. Her mother didn't yell, didn't insult him. She just sounded disappointed. And somehow that hurt more. As he ended the call, the realization settled heavily inside him. He didn't know his own wife anymore. Not where she was. Not what she was thinking. Not how long she intended to stay gone. And the terrifying part was, he knew he had no right to demand answers. He just prayed she would give him one anyway. If you were Maya, would you have walked away too? Or stayed to fight for the marriage? Tell your thoughts in the comments. And if this moment broke your heart a little, stay with the story and keep watching, because the storm has only just begun. The news didn't remain private for long. Evan had spent the past 48 hours calling hospitals, friends, relatives, anyone who might have seen Maya, when suddenly the whisper started. At first, it was subtle. A tense look exchanged between two co-workers in the hallway. A sudden silence in the office kitchen when he walked in. A few phones quickly turned face down. He tried to ignore it, telling himself he was paranoid from lack of sleep. But by lunchtime, he knew something had changed. An email was waiting in his inbox from the corporate PR department, an urgent meeting request. His pulse kicked up as he walked down the glass corridor to the 10th floor. He pushed open the boardroom door only to find the entire executive leadership already there, along with 2 internal attorneys. His stomach dropped. The energy in the room was stiff, controlled, corporate serious. The kind of atmosphere that meant someone was about to have their career set on fire. On the wall screen was a trending social post. Someone had anonymously leaked that Evan, a senior vice president married for 6 years, had impregnated his wife's best friend, who was also a junior employee at the same firm. A scandal involving a power imbalance, workplace ethics, and personal betrayal. It was rocket fuel for the internet. Comments were brutal. Hundreds of them. Thousands by the hour. His boss cleared his throat, voice clipped. Evan, this situation is spiraling quickly. We need a statement, and we need it now. Evan sat stiffly, jaw grinding. He had handled negotiations worth millions of dollars, but this, his private life being dissected publicly, left him painfully exposed. He tried explaining that he hadn't known about the pregnancy until recently, that he was trying to fix the situation, but the attorneys only exchanged strained glances. One of them slid a document toward him. A temporary leave agreement. Effective immediately. Evan stared at it, pulse roaring in his ears. I didn't. His boss cut him off, voice low but firm. We have shareholders. We can't afford a public meltdown tied to a corporate officer. This is damage control. For the first time, the reality hit him like a sledgehammer. He wasn't just losing his wife. He was losing everything. Meanwhile, Olivia's world wasn't faring any better. The moment her phone screen lit up with dozens of messages, she knew something had gone horribly wrong. Someone had found out. Her DMs were filled with strangers calling her names she had never imagined seeing directed at herself. Screenshots of her smiling corporate headshot were floating around the internet, next to captions shredding her character. She dropped her phone onto the couch and covered her mouth with trembling hands. The room spun. She wasn't prepared for this. She had convinced herself that the situation could be handled quietly, that maybe, just maybe, it would work out. But now she was the homewrecker, the mistress, the office scandal. And soon, everyone at work would know. A knock sounded at her apartment door. Her sister, Katie. One look at Olivia's face, and Katie didn't need explanations. She rushed in and hugged her tightly. Olivia fell apart in her arms. I didn't mean for this to happen. I wasn't trying to hurt her, she sobbed. Katie closed her eyes, fighting her own frustration. Liv, you should have walked away the moment you realized what this was. Olivia sank onto the sofa, knees pulled to her chest. She had made excuses, told herself that Maya and Evan were no longer happy, that maybe she was the better match, that everyone deserved a chance at love, even if it looked messy at first. But now that reality stared her in the face, the excuses felt thin, childish, hollow. She had destroyed the one friendship Maya believed would never betray her, and she couldn't take it back. Her phone kept lighting up. Corporate HR, unknown numbers, online threats. She turned it face down and whispered, "They're going to fire me, aren't they?" Katie exhaled slowly. At the very least, they're going to ask questions, and they're not going to be gentle. At the company headquarters, Olivia was already a topic of serious discussion. Junior employee, relationship with a senior executive, pregnancy, legal exposure, potential harassment liability. The corporation couldn't ignore this, and she knew it. The next morning, Olivia had barely slept 2 hours when she walked into the office building wearing oversized sunglasses, hoping to hide how shredded she looked. But the stares were immediate. Conversations stopped in mid-sentence. A coworker she used to eat lunch with every day shifted away as she passed. Someone whispered, not quietly enough, "That's her." Her cheeks burned with humiliation. She walked faster. HR was waiting. Inside the small conference room, with neutral gray chairs and nothing pleasant on the walls, Olivia sat listening as corporate investigators went through every detail, timeline, communications, possible policy violations. She could barely speak through the tightness in her throat. She didn't blame them. She understood. But that didn't make it hurt any less. Finally, the HR director spoke, voice soft but firm. "Olivia, given the circumstances, we strongly recommend you take a leave of absence. Effective immediately." She nodded, eyes glossy, because she knew there was no point arguing. She had lost Maya. She had lost her dignity. And now she was losing her career too. Meanwhile, Evan was pacing the living room of his silent home, his phone blowing up with reporters requesting statements. Some even knocked on the door. He shut the curtains and blocked the numbers, but there was no shutting out the consequences. Late afternoon sunlight streamed into the room, illuminating Maya's favorite throw blanket on the couch, the one she used to curl up in on movie nights. The empty house felt haunting. Accusing he sank onto the couch, voice cracking as he whispered into the quiet, "I did this. I destroyed everything." Maya's absence was a physical ache now. He would have given anything to reverse the clock, but every second forward only deepened the damage. If you were Evan or Olivia, what would you do at this point? Fight to make things right, or walk away and accept the fallout? Tell us in the comments. And if this story is gripping your heart, keep watching, because the moment that changes everything is still ahead. 3 days had passed since Maya vanished. Evan hadn't slept more than a handful of broken minutes, kept alive only by caffeine, anxiety, and regret. The house was too quiet, too cold, too wrong without her. Every room reminded him of how badly he had destroyed the life they built. The empty space in the closet, the faint perfume still lingering in the air, the pillow she slept on, untouched. He had never known that silence could feel loud enough to make his chest hurt. Just after dawn, with red-rimmed eyes and a coffee he wasn't really drinking, he stared at the list of places he had already searched. He had been everywhere except one, Willow Harbor, a small coastal town 3 hours away. Maya's childhood retreat, a place she used to go when she wanted clarity, calm, or escape. He should have thought of it sooner. He grabbed his keys and rushed out the door, hope sparking for the first time in days. The drive was long and heavy with tension. The clouds overhead were low and gray, matching the knot twisting in his chest. He kept replaying everything in his head, the late nights, the lies by omission, the moments he chose distraction over his marriage. The truth was unavoidable now. Maya wasn't just angry. She was heartbroken, and he was terrified he had broken something that could never be repaired. Willow Harbor was quiet, picturesque, and almost too peaceful for the chaos inside him. Past the pier, near a small row of rental cottages, he finally saw her car parked under a tree. His breath caught. She was close, really close. His hands shook on the steering wheel as he parked, the weight of what he was about to face pressing down like stone. For a moment, he stayed in the car, gripping the wheel, terrified. What if she refused to see him? What if she told him she was done for good? What if she had already stopped loving him? The thought sliced painfully through him, but he forced himself out of the car. Maya's cottage door was closed, the curtains drawn. His heart hammered as he approached and knocked. No response. He knocked again, softer this time. Finally, after a long silence, the latch clicked, the door opened, and Maya stood there. Her hair was tied back, face pale and exhausted, eyes swollen, not from lack of sleep, but from crying until her body had nothing left. She wasn't wearing makeup, she wasn't hiding anything. Her pain was visible in every line of her expression. When their eyes met, Evan felt something inside him fracture completely. She didn't step back. She didn't invite him in. She just looked at him with a heartbreak so raw he almost couldn't breathe. "Maya," he whispered, voice cracking. She didn't respond. She just walked past him and sat on the small porch bench, arms crossed, waiting for him to speak. He followed slowly, afraid to sit too close. "I've been searching for you everywhere," he said quietly. "I was so scared." Still silence. She stared out toward the water, the wind blowing strands of hair across her face. Evan swallowed, emotions tightening his throat. "Maya, I'm sorry. I know those words aren't enough. I know I can't change what I did, but I need you to know there was never a day I didn't love you." Her voice was low when she finally spoke. "You loved me, Evan, but you didn't choose me." The sentence hit harder than anything she could have screamed. "I did choose you," he said quickly. She turned her head sharply, eyes shining with anger and grief. "If you had chosen me, we wouldn't be here." He looked down, throat burning. She was right. He had cheated not in a single moment, but in all the small ones leading up to it. Every time he failed to notice her sadness. Every time he brushed off her concerns. Every time he let Olivia get close instead of stopping it. She took a shaky breath. "Do you know what the worst part was?" she asked. "I would have forgiven almost anything if you had just come to me and told me the truth before I found out myself. But instead, I had to learn from her tears. And your silence." He felt the shame like heat rising up his neck. "I didn't know she was pregnant until that night," he whispered. "I was going to tell you. Too late," Maya said. Everything was too late. For a moment, they sat in the heaviness of it. Evan's voice trembled when he spoke again. "Tell me what I can do. I'll go to counseling. I'll quit my job. I'll do anything you ask. Just tell me how to fix this." Her eyes filled again, but she didn't look away. "You want to fix something you already shattered." He exhaled shakily, gripping his knees. "Maya, I swear to you, Olivia means nothing. I let something stupid get out of control. I never wanted to build a life with her. You're the one I want. You always have been." She flinched, not at his words, but at how familiar they sounded. Words that would have meant the world months ago, but now only echoed against the damage. "How am I supposed to believe that?" she whispered. Evan looked desperate now. "Because I'm losing everything without you. My job, my reputation, none of it matters. You matter. You're the only thing I care about." She shook her head slowly, speaking through tears. "And I wasn't enough to make you care before the world found out." He went silent. His heart broke, because she was right again. He had only realized the gravity of his mistake when everything collapsed. Too late. She wiped her eyes and stood up, her voice calmer now, though trembling. "I'm not ready to decide anything yet. I need time. I need space. I need to remember who I am without the pain of this marriage suffocating me." He stood too, panic flickering across his face. "Maya, does that mean you're leaving me?" She looked at him with the saddest expression he had ever seen. "I didn't come here to decide whether to leave you," she said softly. "I came here because I was drowning, and I can't breathe next to you right now." Evan's eyes burned, tears rising despite his attempts to hold them back. "Just tell me there's still hope," he whispered. Maya looked away, the waves crashing against the shore in the distance. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But if there is, it's a very long road from here." A single tear slipped down her cheek, and she wiped it quickly. He reached out instinctively, wanting to touch her, comfort her, hold her just once, but she stepped back, and his hand fell uselessly to his side. "Please," he begged, voice breaking. "Don't shut me out." Her voice cracked too. "I'm not shutting you out. I'm trying to survive." Evan felt his heart collapse in his chest. "If you were Maya, would you try to rebuild this marriage or walk away and start over? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. And if the pain of this moment hit you hard, stay with the story, because fate still has more to reveal. Maya stayed in Willow Harbor longer than she expected. Days turned into a week, and for the first time in years, she woke up without checking her phone, without rushing into routine, without forcing herself to pretend everything was fine. She breathed. She rested. She cried when she needed to, and she sat silently when she didn't have the strength for anything else. Healing wasn't linear. It was uneven, uncomfortable, and exhausting. But it was finally happening. She spent her mornings walking along the shoreline, listening to the soft crash of waves, letting the wind sting her cheeks and the salt settle on her skin. The ocean didn't care about her heartbreak. It moved no matter what. That somehow comforted her. It reminded her that life went forward even after everything fell apart. She found a small cafe by the marina, quiet, warm, the kind of place where the staff smiled at you like you'd been coming for years. She sat by the window with a cup of chamomile tea and her journal, sometimes writing for an hour, sometimes only a single sentence. But the words finally stopped hurting when they landed. They became truth, reflection, clarity, not just wounds reopened. One afternoon, while flipping through her journal, she realized something she never had space to acknowledge before. She had lost herself long before she lost Evan. She had spent years accommodating, adjusting, shrinking, smoothing everything over. She had carried the emotional weight of the marriage while hoping he'd eventually notice and pick up his share. She couldn't blame everything on Evan, not the quiet moments when she knew something was wrong and chose to swallow her pain because she was afraid confrontation would push him away. She had abandoned pieces of herself while trying to hold the marriage together, and now, for the first time in a long time, she had the pieces in front of her and the chance to decide who she would be next. She began cooking again, not for anyone else, but for her. She tried recipes she never had time to explore. She played music while cleaning the small cottage, sometimes dancing clumsily across the wooden floor, laughing at herself. She took long baths, lit candles, read books she'd abandoned years ago. She remembered simple things that made her happy when life wasn't complicated. Her sister drove down one weekend, wrapping her in a hug that was long and overdue. They stayed up late, watched movies, ate ice cream out of the container, talked about their childhood. When Maya opened up about Evan, her sister didn't rush in with advice or judgment. She simply listened, something Maya didn't realize she needed until that moment. "Whatever you choose," her sister said softly, "make sure it's something you're choosing for yourself, not to keep something from breaking." Maya cried into her shoulder, not because the words hurt, but because they felt like truth settling in gently. Meanwhile, Evan texted and called every day. His messages were emotional, apologetic, sometimes frantic. But Maya didn't reply, not because she hated him, but because healing with someone constantly asking her to return would never work. She needed space to think without pressure, without guilt, without the sound of his voice apologizing in her ear while her heart was still bleeding. Eventually, one morning, while sipping tea, she opened his latest message. "I'm going to counseling. Alone. I know I need to understand how I got here. I'm working on myself, not to win you back, but because I need to change who I've become." She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. Growth wasn't just something she had to do. Evan needed it too, and maybe, finally, he understood that a small part of her softened. She wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. But she wasn't made of stone either. Later that week, she received an offer to stay longer at the rental cottage. Without hesitation, she extended her stay. She wasn't ready to go home, to that house full of memories, energy, and echoes. She didn't know whether that home would still be hers in the end. She only knew she needed more time as her, not Evan's wife, not Olivia's betrayed friend, just Maya Emerson, a woman rediscovering her own center. She found a local art workshop and signed up. She hadn't painted since college, but the owner welcomed her like an old friend. The first brush stroke felt strange, like trying to move a muscle she hadn't used in years. But the second stroke felt easier, and the third felt like release. What came out wasn't pretty. It was raw, dark colors, uneven textures, messy strokes. But it was honest, and she loved it for that alone. The instructor smiled and said, "You're not painting a picture. You're painting the truth." Maya blinked, trying not to cry again, because yes, she finally was, and for the first time in a long time. She didn't feel like she was drowning as evening rolled in. She sat on the beach, knees drawn to her chest, watching the sunset bleed gold and pink into the horizon. Her heart was quieter now, not healed, but calmer. She wasn't thinking about the affair, the scandal, the lies, or the humiliation. She was thinking about the future. A future she would shape with intention rather than desperation. Would that future include Evan? She honestly didn't know. She wasn't making decisions based on fear anymore. She wasn't choosing from survival mode. She was giving herself the grace to heal before answering the question that everyone else was probably dying to know. And maybe that was the bravest choice she'd made as the last line of sunlight disappeared. She whispered into the wind, "I'm going to be okay," because she finally believed it. And now, dear viewers, if you've followed Maya's journey this far, I want to ask you something. If you were in her place, would you go back and try to rebuild the marriage? Or close the chapter and start fresh? Tell your heart in the comments below. Your opinion matters here. And if Maya's journey hit deep, if you felt her pain, her growth, her awakening, don't leave now, because in life, heartbreak may shatter you, but sometimes it also rebuilds you into someone stronger than you ever imagined. Drop a in the comments if you're hoping Maya finds the happiness she deserves, whatever direction her next chapter takes. And remember, no matter what life breaks, you are allowed to rebuild yourself too.